see if we can feel the same. Um, it's not gonna do it. Tab. What is going on? There we go. Hold on. See, I won't even put it over there. That's crazy. I don't understand it. There's always something going on here and it won't work. I don't understand it. Well, it's not going to give the audio if it won't put it on a separate deal. I don't understand it. Here needs to clarify. That goes with the infinite fucking mirror effect. I don't care. It's going slow. Quit fucking around. All this. And of course it took away when it refreshed or something. There it is. Look at the views here. Clearly everybody believes this, majority now. And it's been going on since way back. Again, let's go to the OG.
I can govern myself.
I've been doing this
and
with no issue by most police for the last 5 to 10 years. Now they're cracking down here in my hometown just to harass me. Not because it's that big of a deal. Most of the county doesn't care. But this is going to be my art, reminding them that I gave them the statutory exemptions, this, that, and the third. I went and filed in federal court, and all they can do is straw man response, sovereign citizen rhetoric. I got another thing back saying, well, your objection got noted. We're still objecting because this is sovereign citizen rhetoric. No case law, no federal law saying this is wrong. I provided where everything's defined in the law, that you know who it applies for and everything like that, and they didn't do any kind of rebuttal. But they're still dismissing. They're still just trying to railroad me. So we'll play this real quick. I'm gonna go get something to drink. I'll be right back. Does this work? How are you guys winning at this point? My car's been in there for 5 months, and they immediately up on the impound. He said, "Oh well, if you are beating it, I just got a ride ticket." I was like, "All right, but I still have to impound the car. You're free to go though." I was like, "What?" So 5 months later, they're and right immediately in all 3 of them 5 months, they've rejected post-ho hearing request right the very next day, and they've been rejecting ever since that in the repelvents. So. And they try to say the Cherokee Nation court of non-record, we don't accept filings, but then they end up, I said, bullshit, you're not a court of law, which they end up putting all my case law and other filings up on the record, which I can show on screen here in just a second. We'll try to log into the courts and pull that up. So yeah, we'll show what was put up there. My grandma, without an account, unless she had to make her own account, you know, I think it's only for people like me who are Cherokee that are involved that have to make an account regarding that. I don't know how that works, but she was able to pull it up and say, look, they put all that stuff on there. They told you at the court of non-record they're not going to put it on there. So yeah, why do you guys say that? The municipal courts try to say they're courts of non-record either. They're not courts of law. Traffic courts aren't courts of law. You know, they're voluntary courts. There's case law out the ass on that. So here, we'll get through some of this, show you my case, or what they put on their website, which looks like a record of it to me, so they have the evidence, and they're just refusing to offer remedy. because they want to make money off me. They think I'll just agree and pay it. So this is basically the beginning, the little big typed out. I can see it, big letters, first page. Let this serve as a legal notice. This is why I'm going to go in on the trial, since they told me, gaslit me, said I'm wrong. Private attorney has legal advice. This, that, and the third. That's what he told me. Let me give you some advice as a legal advice, as attorney. Some legal, you know what I'm saying. You can't do that as a judge. You guys are working under a secret jurisdiction not found in the Constitution called statutory jurisdiction, right? Well, I brought that up, and he said, "Oh, so nobody can provide the legal authority on which they do this. It's just basically they're mad that they've extorted everyone else. How come they can't extort me? Because the people, they stuck me at the end, of course, the Cherokee Nation, because I emailed them and tried to let them know beforehand this is what's going on. I protected elsewhere. If you guys try to charge me with this type of deal, knowing there's no applicability here, but to crime. So at this point, it's a legal notice. Let this serve as a legal notice. Order to release private automobile unlawfully held without validation or due process. Requirements for impound not met. 3 requirements. And it's mainly Caregiving Act. Everyone knows it's a caregiving violation. Community caregiving. It looks like shit, or it's causing a problem, and people are going to crash right into your car. That, like after an accident, they have to move it off the road because it's a caregiving violation. Other than that, if it's not a murder weapon or involved or used to commit the murder of any kind, since I'm not being charged with anything like that or any other capital crime, or a private property owner didn't see it abandoned and order it off there after a few days or whatever, then there's no reason for a traffic infraction. Completely unlawful. The case law and federal law says so. So I got that there. Just that's the only reason I'm here is the traffic infractions aren't exactly lawful, especially in regards to no license. Traffic courts are voluntary courts, not a court of law. They're courts of non-record search. And basically, you know what I'm saying, especially, I don't need insurance or registration cert. And even if they charge me and I beat it, they impound the car, that's the violation. Because they're stealing property for financial gain. So how do I prove that? I mean, obviously, it sounds like the evidence is clear as day. It happened. It's in there. All the paperwork shows that it's in there, and they're not releasing it. They're demanding that I get license and registration insurance to remove it from them, and now it's beyond the point that I can't pay their fee, and I don't have to pay it for traffic infractions. It's unlawful tow for traffic infractions, and I verified that. I went to the law library and got the Supreme Court and the case law. Another case law. Now, they can't be impounded for traffic infractions, and I can't be punished for being broke. And that's what's going on here. So they tricked me into saying I had to have that. Your simple Google search says there is no state law in the state of Oklahoma that requires, it's actually not required to have license, insurance, and everything to be valid to get privately owned property out of an impound. If I meet the requirements. So I initially just was going to get it out, maybe challenge the impound later and get the money back here in court. But now I'm just going to have to utterly challenge everybody and go to the Supreme Court, since the higher district the federal district court's protecting you guys. And that's what's going on here. I'll read this whole thing and show you what all that they put on there. They sent a lot of it back at the Cherokee Nation, and the federal level sent most of it back, rejecting it. Trying to do we're not a court of it. You're at the district. You got the district judge of the underworld in your name. You're a court of record. Because most district courts, and you're at the county or state level, whatever you want to call it. And you know what I'm saying? So get the hell out of here with that shit. So we'll be right back. I've seen this video, so we're going to play this and some of this top stuff that comes up when you type that right there in. And I want you to ask yourself, most of you are preaching this. You're not like me out here suffering. My family doesn't fuck with me. 5 months no car. I got beat up. My ribs broke by my brother and dad. And they kicked me out thinking I'm some crackhead, whatever. I'm a good guy. You know what I'm saying? But that I'm some crackhead bum that just wants to sit here, and that I'm not actually trying to fight it or do anything. Because they don't want to see and pay attention to what's going on. They assume nothing's happening. But they won't look to see what's happening. So basically, if they see this new movie that we're out here and this is the majority, right? Well, we need to start acting like it, folks, and doing this and getting the paperwork and reading these people. Because if the new Sovereign movie comes out or whatever, If people like my dad see it, it's the confirmation bias they need because they're on the fence now. Like, oh, maybe this is what God's calling us to do. Anti-government extremist or sovereign citizen. Where is it? Sovereign citizen. And it's to make him look like he does drugs. He's violent around his kids. He's actually supposed to be a felon. He's been getting away with buying. That's a straw man to put this narrative that we're cuckoo crackheads out here trying to find loopholes out of the law when they are creating statutes, codes, and they're creating all sorts of stuff like the new stuff right now that says you can't question Israel or you'll get 20 years. They're shutting down bank accounts for questioning what my Bible calls the children of Satan and everything else. They're calling me Yahtzee and all this stuff when I never praise the man, but damn, you're making it hard not to at this point because, again, nobody proves anything wrong. We are sovereign, but we're not citizens. They don't go together. It's conspiracy theory. Yeah, there's conspiracy going on, but they add a theory to say, oh, it's just a theory of it. It's not true. It's to psychologically downgrade it and make the people promoting it look crazy. So they're the biggest movement in American history right now as these lawyers offer multiple, probably $15 million payouts to stop doing this and suing all the judges and invoking original jurisdiction. They're offering to pay him out right at the same time these motherfuckers drop this damn movie, folks. So yeah, let's put it right here. Sovereign, let's make sure you can see it. Hold on. That's crazy. Be right back. I'll play this video and some others. And lab too. That's weird. All right. I need to find. So that movie is going to be. It's been going on way longer
I
than
can
recently.
govern myself.
recent
and
ruling.
self-government.
Donald Sullivan isn't your typical guy. The retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel voted for Ron Paul in the recent election and says our government has gotten too far away from the republic our forefathers founded.
We don't have control on anything. The state regulates and taxes.
Yeah, everybody's saying
The
it.
government micromanaging his life, Mr. Sullivan staged a unique form of protest. There's no state-issued license plate on his truck. You won't find an inspection sticker either. Sullivan says he doesn't need them, and he's been driving around without them for the last year and a half.
I wanted to get a ticket, and I wanted to have the vehicle impounded, and I wanted to be arrested, because you have to have standing in a court to pursue these kinds of questions.
He finally got his wish. A trooper in January, and the case was recently heard in court. The judge denied Mr. Sullivan's motions regarding the court's jurisdiction over him, but found him not guilty of the driving offenses in question. Mr. Sullivan says it was a huge victory and says the next time all he has to do is show the officers the paperwork with the court's not guilty finding and he's off the hook. But the lawyer we asked says not so fast.
See, then they get a bar attorney.
The court made a determination, for whatever reason, that the state had not proved beyond a reasonable doubt that which they had to prove someone guilty. What happened in this case is particular only to this case. What occurred in the trooper
See, I
cited.
can't stand them bar and Jew attorneys doing that. Uh-oh, there's somebody still not doing it. Bro.
Here's a full tutorial for dealing with a traffic stop when traveling
Yeah.
privately.
Not a real person.
All right, everyone. Let's talk about a situation we've all either feared or wondered about. Getting pulled over while traveling in pass. You've got no life because you're not engaged in commerce. The key.
Even this guy, over a decade ago, this guy got $250 for one night. I get denied trying to do a complaint for $10,000. I raised it to $100,000 when I had to refile. Excuse me, I ate too much earlier. Excuse me. So I'd like to actually see, that's cool. All the people winning in every county, according to the Florida Sheriff Deputy. They went and shot the wrong sovereign looking for the criminal sovereign. Part of gang. Going after, I assume, since there's a high amount of black people in this movement that aren't criminals. You know, they got the occasional ones that are. That's usually how it goes down in Broward or wherever that was. It was somewhere nearby there. But, you know, it wouldn't tell. It basically was looking for somebody and wanted in a murder. They're using sovereign plates to get it, whatever. Sovereign citizen rhetoric to get it out of it or to hide himself. And they put over the wrong one. Didn't explain how the first half of the stop went. All they did was describe that, oh, he was resisting and shot the deputies. But probably not that the deputies probably came up with it, whatever. We got this. And another one that's got millions of views. This one's only 31,000, but I got one of those judge saying this is rhetoric. Deal with this, and this. I know where this is going. I have no evidence to get. They're not being honest.
$25 dismissal fee on that. Good job. And then were you able to cure your license issue, or is there a hold?
For the record, my name is Ryan Thor. I'm the living man. I am not the entity known as Ryan Michael Thor, just to clear that. I am here on special appearance under threat, duress, and coercion to challenge subject matter jurisdiction and also personal jurisdiction as well. I filed my paperwork for you on Friday, and the clerk illegally
Everybody's saying
denied it.
Nobody's doing it.
I went again this morning and filed my paperwork again for you. The clerk
We're not hearing any
again
of this.
illegally denied it, even though I
No,
gave
as far
her
as
a notice
frustration
telling
and
her it's a
checklist.
felony for her not to accept my paperwork. And actually, it's in law, it's considered filed when I gave it to her. So therefore,
What do you want to do today, sir?
Awesome judge.
well,
It's on point.
Your Honor, I mean, I'm going to have to ask a few questions first, which, first of all, is I need to understand the nature and the cause of the charges against me, as well as I need to know, is this a civil jurisdiction or criminal jurisdiction?
Okay, it's criminal jurisdiction.
Criminal.
It's traffic infraction court, so no possibility of going to jail on any of this. You've
Well, you said
settled
it's
one of your
criminal.
counts. You just proof of correction on
It's either
August
traffic
26,
court or
2022.
it's criminal.
Ryan
Traffic
Michael
court's not
Thor is-
criminal.
If you're saying, are you saying that's not you?
Ryan Thor is the living man. Ryan Michael Thor is the defendant in error. It's the artificial person. So thank you, Your Honor. Let the record of the court show that the action against me is criminal. And now I have another question, because the constitutional jurisdictions, okay? One criminal jurisdiction is under the common law and the other is under the criminal jurisdiction of admiralty or military tribunal venue from Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution.
Go back to your case in a second. I gotta do some other cases and then I'll take the time to do all this with you.
Well, I need to know which of these two jurisdictions that you intend to try me. It's very important because they're done different ways. The rules of civil procedure are very different in a criminal jurisdiction, obviously for common law, and a military.
Charged civilly, no one's asking you, no. So we just need to show, were you able to cure your license with the DMV or you don't know?
Your Honor, I need to get these other questions answered. I need to know what the jurisdiction is, and I need to know also who the injured party is. The nature and cause of this. I need to know who the injured party is. I need to know who's bringing the claim.
And that's why I'm gonna go in there and say, look, man, I understand you've been doing something for some people 40 plus years, but the law states very clear that I have the right to know who the injured party is and have them right there on the witness stand with the ID the same as on that document. For example, Your Honor, let's say you wasn't a judge. You was just a regular guy on the street, same name and all, and we had a car accident. I tried to run off and you tried to sue me because I didn't have whatever, because I didn't have the money and I just tried to avoid it and hide out for a while and figured you'd give up on it. But you caught up with me. You got my tag right then. You were my VIN number when I wasn't looking, and you got my information. Well, on that docket, sir, would it not be your first and last name versus my first and last name, and you can put either one of us on the witness stand with the ID to verify it? Correct? Okay, well, what's giving permission for Cherokee Nation to be here on the docket here of any case whatsoever as the injured party? In which we cannot, which I demand you to even try, it's going to be needed or else we can't proceed, but which cannot be put on the witness stand with as a living person that we can verify has the all capital letter Cherokee Nation Corporation or Tribunal or whatever. It's a corporation on the stock exchange, just like the Katua Federal Corporation. It says Federal Corporation in the name. Right out there on the sign. This is no different. So if you guys, can't do that, because all cases were stated in party, Supreme Court has original jurisdiction, you guys don't have jurisdiction, you can't be the party. If you're the injured party, you can't judge your own case, sir. So you're the judge for the state of Oklahoma, correct? The All Caps Corporation? Or excuse me, for Cherokee Nation? Okay, then how can you, if Cherokee Nation's the victim, how can you be how can you represent the victim and judge the victim here, sir? So you said last time that you needed to give me let me give you some private advice as attorney, or some advice as a private attorney. That's illegal, first off, to do that, and you can't play dual roles. but you also can't do these dual roles where the prosecutor, where you're the witness. You weren't the witness. You're the injured party, aka the victim. You're also the attorney for the victim, the defense for the state. You're the prosecution and the judge, so on. You're the victim, you're the witness, you're the prosecution, and the judge. So, that's bullshit. So even if I did enter you in your private capacity, not on official duty, and you're still a judge, it'd be me versus you. You couldn't be a judge to your own case. So in this, you're identifying as the state of Oklahoma, you're a representative of the state of Oklahoma, of your business. You can't judge your own action. You're claiming to be the one that's injured here, and the state cannot judge its own action. It cannot be a victim and a witness and the one prosecuting, because the prosecutor cannot be the one part of the case. It's a conflict. It's pretty clear as day. And that's why we're out here in every county to remind you that this has been going on. And under federal arrest, without cameras, documentation, and knowing how the court thing works, we couldn't prove this. I mean, we were getting just thrown in jail without being proven wrong, and then we finally got court cases winning, saying they can't be thrown in jail with it for this, especially if they're correct. So you get what I'm saying, Your Honor? Basically, I'm in here under duress in threat of being arrested if I don't comply, and that's under the color of law. And nothing in this court or any court that's been able to, as with any legal citation, statute, or anything, has been proven that these statutes in regards to the license and the motor vehicle code apply with an individual. It says right in there that a person in which this applies to, under the definitions, is a corporation or other artificial entity, sir. Nothing about it says it's a living individual, everyday out here, private American, etc. It doesn't have any of that kind of language. Private citizen, any of that in there. It just says a natural, it just says a person. Just like the federal definition, everywhere, including the United States Code, it says that a person is a corporation. Now, that's how I'm going to go in there. And again, y'all come tell me where I'm fucking up. But that's how the definitions were interpreted. That's why the court ruled that we don't need a license at the Supreme Court level. So we can go back up there and get them to review this decision, and they will happily agree with us and say that you are wrong, and you're one of lesser and lesser courts that are still pushing this issue in order to extort people, thinking that we're not aware of the financial the bias here, that you're trying to make quota on traffic infractions instead of going after real crime, knowing they won't pay and they'll sit in prison. Whatever it is, or that you're scared that it's too big beyond your control. And you're going to harass people for no license, and you're not going after the drugs, the raping and killing in my community, then that's the problem. Or whatever other crimes that we have going on. This is extortion of the poor who can't afford all these licensings and registrations, let alone the fees for not having it, being unconstitutional. They can't afford that anyways, and it being ruled as such, it's extortion, Your Honor. And I'm not here really to argue the case, since there's no jurisdiction to even hear this case, but I want to hear on the record that this is an emolument violation here, Judge, that you're getting paid to break the law and issue these things on where they don't apply, and we don't get to say otherwise. It's sovereign citizen rhetoric when nobody's ever claimed anything of the case. We agree with the case that there is no such thing as a sovereign citizen. The one case that you try to use against us, and that's it. This is protected. The Chevron deference doctrine is gone. All three-letter agencies, including the bar and their regulations therein that they created, are void and never were enacted lawfully. And that was the only thing giving these people the right to these administrative law judges, the right to have their own free will of interpretation of already decided stare decisis upon the law. So yes, we have to go back to that Civil War style law, pre-1933 style law, because obviously up until about mainly the 50s and 60s is when they really started pushing license and registration, and it was solidified after the 90s and after 9/11. Before that, Most people could beat it just like this, and they wouldn't say nothing, or they didn't care if you didn't have one. My grandfather, as a kid, was driving by 9. He's driving already by like 3 to 6 years old, right? But he had his own truck going to school by around 9, and then by 11, which is crazy nowadays. Which is not very, when you think about it, it's only 5 years. But at 11, had a full-time job with a moving truck. And although child labor, I don't know if that's necessary these days, I do think it's needed, and bringing it back younger would be, people would grow up faster, and we wouldn't have these people that are like 30 that act like 12, Your Honor. You know what I'm saying? There is a lot of dangerous child labor that shouldn't happen, but now we're just waiting 3 or 4 years to get people off the bottle and try to actually potty train and get them to talk English instead of immediately, because babies would pick up on that at one time a lot quicker, and now they're on drugs that make them slower to understand, and we just wait even longer to do it because we don't understand. And sir, I think if by 11 people had a full-time moving job, it would mean that they're trusted to drive pretty good, and then by 15 or 16 there'd be responsible people on the road. But it's clearly that most of the people in traffic violations, most of the people in accidents, drunk driving accidents, at the bar getting drunk in the first place to risk such an accident, basically the majority of your threat upon the roadway is, in fact, on record, licensed drivers. So the only other argument you guys have against this, since there's no legal argument proving us wrong, is, well, what if you get into an accident and hurt somebody? It's no different than if a licensed driver gets in an accident. But for some reason, a guy with a license, registration, and insurance, even though they have the same, or I may have more money than them, has some sort of supremacy on the roadway during an accident than a person without one, whether he's a criminal, a crackhead, a guy just avoiding suspension rules and not knowing you don't need a license or not. Basically, pretty much. My own family promotes this type of nonsense now. What if you get into an accident? Well, you didn't care about me getting into an accident or worry about it when I had my license, just when I said I'm going to turn it in 10 years ago. Let's say about 8 or 9 years later, that's become the topic, and all you can think about is something unrelated to the topic at hand. I get it, but if I get into an accident, I get into an accident. It's in the story. That's what happens. But it's just like anything else. But me having a license is irrelevant and doesn't prevent. Oh, there's one thing that they told me in my family that I'm gonna need this. Is to understand. It was like, well, it's like a license. I just had it and it went away. Like I don't need to do it. But no, straight up, basically, it's the same thing. Like if you get into an accident, like, well, now you're scared that I'm a threat and I can't drive and you're a horrible driver. All right. What will make you think that I'm responsible and I'm better at driving than I ever was? I get, you know what I mean? That my friends trust me, everyone else trusts me to drive. I think if you guys just basically goddamn, you know what I mean? If you get a license, a plastic piece of paper clearly isn't going to stop all the licensed drunk drivers at the bar on Saturday night, this coming Saturday, from getting fucked up and Taco Bell, somebody take me. I'm peed on a wormer. I'm peeing outside the Taco Bell. Like, stop playing with me. And I'm tired of that fucking argument from the ignorance. And, and from people even in this group. So, I don't know. This is cool and all, but I want people to prove it. So I'll go through what I put. I don't want to read the whole fucking thing, but I guess I said I would. Look, I am a natural person and a recognized creditor, civil rights advocate, litigant, assert my lawful rights as a private traveler. Attorney in fact, priority creditor, authorized representative of the all capital state here. Clearly, I'm just a private traveler operating my personal vehicle. And I have the right to remove the tag and decal right there in the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Act throughout state statute, case law, and federal law. This is not a requirement to have it, but it's optional to have a license and everything like that. And you're over here punishing me as if it's required. The punishments are unlawful and unconstitutional and been ruled by the Supreme Court. I mean, you're doing this on purpose to prove that you're willingly breaking the law That's what I need to write on here, because that's why I do it. You know, so just filibuster. I'm probably going to say is 20% of people in here probably have a no license charge. They didn't murder anybody. They didn't injure anybody. But a little traffic infraction, they're in jail for months because they can't afford the fine. And that's not fair if people like me are beating these type of charges. So clearly you guys are the criminals, not me. And yeah, I put all my stuff on record. It's going to the federal court. They're refusing, so the Supreme Court's going to shut you down if we don't dismiss, preferably an acquittal. And you guys should stop committing these emolument violations and charging other motherfuckers. That's what I want to say. But I go through all the case law, the private exemptions to private automobiles and state statutes like California and my state, Oklahoma, and others, Texas, saying licenses and registration, all that, you can't force it, it's prohibited. I'm just rambling because I want people to prove that this works. These people are proving it. It seems like they get it, but why am I having trouble? So come on. Even cops on the side of the road, I've had undersheriffs in neighboring counties say that, yes, this is protected now, or this is legal. I had to see it to believe it. And he couldn't answer to why is this still an issue elsewhere if winning everywhere. Even this guy's saying it.
Do you need a loan for your business? Well, if you've been around
right
for
here.
over a year, I'm about to show you how to get up to
For
driving incident. So what happened there was that you entered into a contract with the state when you chose to go and get a driver's license. Now, whether or not you understood that you didn't have to have a driver's license because government cannot interfere with your use of your private property. Your vehicle is your property. That's your private property. It's yours, right? And because it's yours, government cannot interfere with your use of that private property unless you enter into your legal relationship with the state, permitting yourself to be subject to it. And that's what they claim. They claim that you willfully entered a contract to obey the state driving law property. So that vehicle is yours. You can do with it what you want as long as you're not harming someone else, right? And so, but when you enter into a contract with the state, now, you know, the terms are important because now you're not traveling, now you're driving. Now you've entered into a contract that agrees to obey the driving laws, right? And as a result, now you are subject to criminal or civil sanctions should you breach the contract terms that are in place. So, you know, if the contract says I will obey the driving laws and the driving laws say you have to drive 60 miles an hour and you're out driving 75 miles an hour, then they could pull you over because that's a breach of contract. And as a result,
again, even if you did nothing else unlawful on the roadway, they can also just pull you over due to check for tags, inspect the stickers and everything else because of the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Act too. Go ahead.
you're out driving 75 miles an hour, then they could pull you over because that's a breach of contract. And as a result of the breach of contract, now you need to come into a courtroom to negotiate the terms of the breach, right? But where they get you on the second one is your vehicle, your private property. When you take your private property and you register it with the corporation, guess what? Now you're driving for commercial purposes because now that vehicle is a commercial operating vehicle.
Their
right?
property now.
So when the Supreme Court comes out and says that you can travel for non-commercial purposes freely without a license, when they say that, well, what they're saying is that you willfully entered into a contract to subject yourself to the driving laws. And then you've taken your vehicle and you've registered it with the corporation. And now as a result of registering it with the corporation, now you are operating for commercial purposes. And now that's not your property. It's registered with the corporation. That's where they get you. Now, the other way that they get you is if you purchase a vehicle, right? And that vehicle is financed. Well, you enter into a contract with that finance corporation, and in that contract it says, I'll have a driver's license, I'll have insurance, I will register my vehicle, and now...
Exactly. Most people getting cars are financing them, and they require that as part of their finance rules for it to be registered. But if you just save up for, like, let's say 7 years, $100 a month, some people used to do, just put their money back. And then like a few years down the road, this money they had buried in the backyard or whatever, they went and bought the car outright off the lot. Paid cash. But we can't do that anymore. Even with that, we get a little bit more to compensate with the rise of everything. We still can't. We can pay $100 to $1,000 a month, right, towards a car. But we can't put that $1,000 that we're still going to get every month. That's going away every month to the car. But if it sits there at home in a jar or buried under the yard, eventually I'm just going to blow it on something other stupid. But I can't just waste time. Like if I'm paying $1,000 a month right at the beginning, the rest of the month I don't have that 1,000 to blow. How come I can't just pretend it's gone and live like I'm broke on ramen noodles until I get a $20,000 saved up for like 20 months, 2 years, maybe 2 years, a couple months. Instead, you're paying 12 years. Depending on what it is, I don't know. You get half of it, you can get whatever. You can save up. I get 50,000 is a lot to do for a truck. The base model still, or a small, decent something, and can pay for it outright. There's these Chinese brands that are offering cheaper alternatives that are reliable when it comes to like bikes. That's what I did to get an MCO. But that's what's going on here. Most people are financing their cars. The rules there, the finance. It's commerce. And they give the MCO up to the state afterwards, not to you.
You are bound to certain obligations because of that particular contract. You cannot enter into a contract with a finance company, because obviously the finance company wants to proliferate this whole concept, because this is all about the banking institution. So when you agree to finance a vehicle because you don't have the money to be able to pay for it, and you agree that you're going to go to this bank and ask this bank to go to your SESQV and pull from your QSIP from your own account, and then they give you the money so that you will sign an agreement to get a driver's license, get your registration, you carry insurance. Those things you don't have to have unless you're in a contract with them agreeing to do it. So this whole system has been set up to confuse you into not.
It's all consent, and they tell the government you signed a voluntary contract as described here in the regulations. Just like it says all throughout the Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Act. Got to all local government police that this is a voluntary program. And they're enforcing it as it's required. It's required. Where? Where does it say the word required?
Realizing that vehicle is your property. You paid for it with your money out of your account, and you went to someone else and agreed to certain terms that you're now bound
That's
to follow
not yours anymore.
as a result of nothing more than them wanting to proliferate this ignorance that exists. So what happens then is that in order to not be subject to those particular laws, two things has to happen. First off, you have to remove the contracts, which means that vehicle can't be registered. You remove it from the corporation. That's my vehicle. I own it. You, corporation, have nothing to do with this. Now it's my personal property. I can do what I want with my personal property. Government can't interfere with my use of it. And then you must remove your driving status, right? I'm not a driver. I don't have to have a license. I'm not going to have an agreement with you, state, because I have the freedom to be able to operate this private property in whatever way I see fit. I will choose to be obedient to your laws out of love, faith, and obedience to my fellow man, meaning that I'm not going to drive in a reckless manner. I'm going to drive consistent with your laws because that's what my fellow man has said that he would like like to do.
We're not trying to speed or nothing, even though we'll beat it if we do go 5 over or 50 over, depending on what it is. But we're being harassed for no signal license and everything else. That's ridiculous. And even speeding is kind of ridiculous if we didn't injure anybody.
I'm going to willfully subject myself to it, but I'm not going to be subjected to it under contract. And that's a very, very important point. Now, the second thing is that in order for this to work, right, we need those that are in a position of authority to understand that they're exceeding their authority when they breach the obligation. They believe that they can do these things because that's how it's been done for 100 years. And it doesn't matter how long it's been done or how many times it's been done wrong. And if you're doing things wrong,
that's all tradition and conditioning. We're trying to get everybody. Well, hang on. There's a private attorney. And still trial 5 months. No car out yet. Yeah, everybody says do that. They're ons. Go here, go there, and then no, yeah. Come on. Well, all right, keep going, keep going.
Wrong, Judge, then it's still wrong, and it can never become right. So we need something that's going to wake them up to a massive scale. But you guys got to get out of your contracts, and that's what I'm trying to do here. Is we can void these contracts by voiding the state laws, and that's what I'm doing here at the Supreme Court. We're extremely close to it. You know, I'm using one specific mechanism, the indictment by the grand jury, and the breach of obligation as a result of the failure to use the indictment by a grand jury by these 32 states. But that simply is the bigger introduction to show that these states and statutes, they have no authority, because just as Justice Gorsuch says, they're based upon administrative law, not common law. They have no validity whatsoever. Courts can't rely upon something that is not common law. They can't become willful accomplices in the breach of the very laws that they were instituted to be able to protect and defend.
The next question.
Well, there's one thing I want to add to that, if I could. So the Supreme Court's theory behind the Thompson versus Smith ruling, where they said that you don't have to have that you can travel for non-commercial purposes. This is the rationale behind it. Okay, so if each state has their own independent driving laws, right, and driving statutes, right, and you go and you apply to the corporation for a driver's license in the state of, say, Montana, right, now you're subject to Montana state driving laws. But that means that you can travel through the state of Pennsylvania, not obeying the Pennsylvania state driving laws, and guess what? They can't enforce the state of Pennsylvania. So if your driver's license is suspended, for instance, out of Montana, and you're driving through Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania can't do anything about it. You can travel through the state of Pennsylvania because you're not subject to Pennsylvania laws, and the state of Pennsylvania cannot enforce the laws of Montana, right? So you have the authority to be able to travel for non-commercial purposes. Now, the non-commercial element is that when you have a CDL, the CDL is enforceable across jurisdictional lines. So if you have a CDL, then that would be subject to enforceability within each one of the independent 50 regional governments. But if you have a independent driver's license that's suspended, or a registration suspended, or even if you don't have your vehicle registered and there's no tags on it, you can drive through a state, because I don't have to go and get a driver's license in the state of Pennsylvania simply to drive through it, right? And if I'm not there for an extended period of time, more than 60 days, I don't have to have a driver's license. Therefore, I can travel through the state of Pennsylvania without a license, with it suspended, with or without tags. It doesn't matter, because the state of Pennsylvania cannot enforce the different states' laws. So that's the rationale behind the ruling from the Supreme Court. That's one of the reasons why I don't spend more than 30 days in any particular area. I'm constantly on the move because I have to maintain my particular status. I don't have an ID. I won't get an ID. I will not accept a state ID. The only ID I carry is my veteran's ID, which is a federally issued ID, and it's good for travel. And so as a result, I could travel through the states, and the states have no authority to be able to do that. Jurisdictionally,